Ramsey County Board of Commissioners to order. We'll echo this morning of August 22nd, 2023. Roll call, please.
Fretham.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Moran.
Here.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Here.
Zhang is running a little late today. Martinson.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to turn to Commissioner McGuire for our land acknowledgement this morning.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. We all look forward to when we get to do the land acknowledgement, and I would comment that I got some maps that tell the story of the past, present, and future of Dakota people and the Dakota language in the Twin Cities, and I got this at a recent park event, and so I just want the public to know that these are available, and that's a great map that shows all the history of our Dakota people. So with that, Madam Chair, the land acknowledgement. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life. And some have lived on this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We are standing on the ancestral lands of the Dakota people. We want to acknowledge the Ojibwe, the Ho-Chunk, and the other nations of people who also called this place home. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the treaties made by the tribal nations that entitle non-Native people to live and work on traditional Native lands. Consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. Thank you. We have the agenda of August 22nd, 2023 presented for approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran. She just stepped out. Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Zhang.
Aye.
Fretham.
Aye.
And Martinson.
Aye. We have the minutes from August 15th, 2023 presented for approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran. Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Zhang.
Aye.
Fretham.
Aye.
And Martinson.
Aye. I'm going to turn to Commissioner McGuire for our administrative items this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move item number 3, the Recycling and Energy Board Joint Activities Budget. Item 4, the Workforce State Direct Appropriation for Milestone Tech Program. Number 5, the Workforce State Direct Appropriation for Community Tech Squad Program. And number 6, the cancellation of the November 7th, 2023 board meeting.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Zhang.
I'd like to pull item number 5, Workforce State Direct Appropriation for Community Tech Squad Program.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second on items 3, 4, and 6. All right. Roll call, please.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran. Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Zhang.
Aye.
Fretham.
Aye.
And Martinson.
Aye. So I'll look for a motion. Commissioner Zhang for the item number 5, Workforce State Direct Appropriation for Community Tech Squad Program.
Yes.
You got to move it first.
I would like to move item number 5 and pull it for discussion,
and we have a motion and a second, and I'll turn back to you, Commissioner
Great.
Zhang.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'd like to have Director Becker come up here too to talk and promote about the program here. Okay. This is one that was formed, just based off on like great partnerships, thinking about our connectivity plan, but also making sure that it's accessible and equitable throughout our metro area here. So I wanted to pull this item and have Director Ling Becker share more about it. Thanks.
Yeah, good morning, Board Chair and Commissioners and County Manager O'Connor. I want to especially thank Commissioner Zhang and Commissioner Moran for their advocacy for these direct appropriations. Workforce Solutions is really grateful for these additional resources to serve youth and young adults. Both of these programs actually provide additional resources that leverage some of our ARPA efforts that we've invested in, and so they provide some additional funding beyond the ARPA dollars to continue some of the work that we have done. We know that Tech Careers has continued to be one of high growth and high wage, and I know Board Chair, you and Commissioner Moran came to the graduation for Milestone, and that was really heartwarming to be able to see the state invest in that program now beyond Ramsey County. And then also, Commissioner Zhang, to the program that you're talking about, this program actually really aligns with our digital equity efforts. Not only are we promoting young people to work in tech careers, but we're also giving back to the community through these deployment of these tech squads that will work in community-based organizations to provide baseline tech support in communities. Young adults who are 18 to 24 who are from low-income census tracts will be eligible to participate in this program. And so happy to answer any other questions, but really want to again, thank you guys for your advocacy with the legislature to get these funds on behalf of Ramsey County. Milestone especially didn't have to come through Ramsey County. They could have got their direct appropriations directly, but in their good working relationships with us throughout the pandemic, they saw the value of partnering with the county and specifically asked for that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Director Becker. Any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for just sharing about that, and also for your quick work and quick turnaround time on this. It was really just through a lot of our discussions and through a lot of the planning that has already been done that we're like, oh, hey, we can make that connection, and also connecting that with my district where we have like some of the youngest people here, that this program really was able to get funded through your work, but also through Representative Jay Zhang, who is chair of workforce development, where he was able to make those connections and really appreciate the work that Ramsey County is already doing too, and the trust in us. Mm-hmm. So I'm very happy that we were able to get this all together. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Zhang.
Thank you.
With that, we will go to roll call, please.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Zhang.
Aye.
Bretham.
Aye.
And Martinson.
Aye. Next, we have our long-anticipated policy item of the presentation of the 2024-25 biennial budget. As the county manager moves to the dais, I just want to thank all the staff that are here supporting this budget presentation this morning and the work that has gone in over the last couple years, because we know we continuously are doing budget work and continuing to improve the way that we develop and create a budget. So thank you to you all who are here in the audience and those that are watching that participated. And I'd also like to turn to now our budget chair, Commissioner Reinhardt. And Commissioner Reinhardt has led our budget committee for many, many years, and I really appreciate your work. And with that, Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Chair Martinson. Well, as we know, today kicks off the board budget process for 2024 and 2025. And we do have a 2-year budget process that we have had in place for a number of years. And really, it is to align better with the state legislative process because that's where some of our funds, I can't say a majority, but some of our funds come from the state legislature. And so it's just easier to budget that way. We'll hear a series of presentations today. First, we'll hear from the county manager on his budget recommendation to the county board. We'll then hear from planning manager Larry Timmerman, who will provide an update on community indicators, which is really what our budget is all about, is what impact are we having on the community, what positive impact. Finally, we'll hear from the County Assessor, Pat Chapman, and County Auditor Treasurer Tracy West on the valuation trends and projected property tax impacts of levy changes proposed by both the county and other local jurisdictions. And again, I'd like to note that when the bill comes to our homes, it says Ramsey County, but only a portion of that is for Ramsey County. All of the other bills are contained on that as well. A note for those familiar with our process, we typically hear from the Finance Department during our budget kickoff as well, but we've moved that financial update from CFO Alex Kutza and her team to the September 5th board meeting. I just want to remind everybody that this today is an overview and it's the beginning of the conversation. Service teams will be sharing more detail with us during their presentations in September. We've got quite a schedule ahead of us. Presentations from the service teams on their budget are scheduled for September 5th through September 19th. And the focus of these meetings is to do a much deeper dive into the county manager's proposed 2024-2025 budget for each of the service teams. A schedule for those that are listening, a schedule of those hearings is available at www.ramseycounty.us/budget. And I'll repeat that at the end. On Tuesday, September 19th at 4:30, we'll have our first public hearing on the 2024-2025 biennial budget. We will have both a virtual and in-person option for public comment. You can sign up to comment with the chief clerk at 651-266-9200 or via email at chiefclerk, all one word, at ramseycounty.us. Or you can sign up at the meeting. On Tuesday, September 26th, the board will set the 2024 maximum property tax levy. The second public hearing will be held in late November or early December. More details on the exact date, time, location will be available later this fall. Prior to that hearing, residents and businesses will receive their property tax statement. And this includes details on, again, the proposed levy for all taxing jurisdictions, county, city, school board, and others, and provide detail on how these proposals impact your property. Residents and business owners should look for that information in the mail in mid to late November. On Tuesday, November 28th, the Budget Committee will discuss changes to the 2024-2025 budget, if there are any that are requested by board members. And then finally, on Tuesday, December 12th, the County Board will give final approval to the 2024-2025 budget, including any changes approved by the committee, and set the final levy for 2024. I just want to say also that we do have two public hearings. We're actually only required to have one, but we wanted to have a couple of them, as we've done in the past few years. But you can also provide comments online. That's probably the best if you want them to be part of the public record. You can have conversations with us, but that's kind of hard to put into the public record. Right. So if you want something on the public record regarding the budget, or the outcomes, whatever is included in that, you can go to the website to check out the budget and go really deep dive into that. I'm very proud of our portal that provides that information. And you can provide input as we go forward here. So with that, I'd like to I'll turn it back over to you, and you can turn it over to Kim.
Thank you very much again, Commissioner Reinhardt, and thanks for your hard work, and your Vice Chair, Commissioner Moran, as well, to work on this budget. It's really, really great. We're going to listen to County Manager O'Connor, but I wanted to just also highlight, thank you for laying out the schedule and how people can be involved, and I know that you'll repeat that over the cycle
Yes,
of our budget hearings. County Manager O'Connor.
Madam Chair, members, good morning. It's an honor to be here in front of you today, this organization and this community, to present the proposed 2024-2025 Ramsey County budget to the Board of Commissioners. I would also like to start with some acknowledgments, recognizing that I am not able to stand here today without the work of so many having first taken place. First, I want to recognize the work of the Chief Financial Officer, Alex Kutza, and Finance Deputy Directors, Susan Earle and Renee Vogt. This budget process has been their life since January, maybe before, and I have appreciated their counsel, leadership, and support at every step of the way. Next, I want to acknowledge the rest of the core budget team that includes Chief of Staff Elizabeth Tolsman and Planning Manager Larry Timmerman. They too have been here at every step of this process. They've offered insights and wisdom that has made this process and the product I present to you today so much better. I want to especially recognize the Budget Chair, Commissioner Reinhardt, and Budget Vice Chair, Commissioner Moran, for their monthly guidance. At times I would call it counseling, as we worked in an uncertain fiscal and policy environment to construct a framework that I am proud to present to you today. And finally, as you look around this chambers as a representative sample of many, I want to acknowledge the hundreds, actually thousands, of Ramsey County staff and community members who have been a part of developing this 2-year budget, sometimes whether they even know it or not. It is their work, it is their expertise, it is their commitment to this community that results in the document you will be reviewing in the weeks and the months to come. We often talk about a budget being with us not only for a few days during a year, but every day during every year, as a part of every Tuesday and every meeting in between. And I hope you see in this presentation and the many to follow that is proof that those words carry significant meaning. We do this work together, and we then summarize and sharpen it into a meaningful plan to fund and implement our work as an organization. I could not do it without so many others being involved, including each of you in this room and each of you at this table. And it is important to start with these acknowledgments from the outset. Today's budget provides an opportunity for an important story arc. We gather at a time in which the COVID-19 pandemic has officially ended. It has tested our limits, it has tested our budgets, it has tested our programs and our resolve. It has also required all of our focus and energy for years, and we have spent a lot of time talking about the ripple effects it has had and how we will continue to live with the results from it. Today, I present to you a budget that moves Ramsey County beyond the pandemic. Not beyond in the sense that COVID is fully leaving us, as evidenced by the mask I'm wearing in front of you today after having had COVID again last week in my annual August thing, but that it is a time to build a budget and a path forward that takes us beyond conversations that center on a pandemic and its daily impacts. We are a different community than we were before, and we will forever and always be changing. We will not be going back to who we were, and it's a waste of time to have those conversations, even if we thought they were a good idea. We have learned a lot. We have grieved. We have at times struggled. And we have found renewed senses of purpose and optimism along the way. We have been reminded that local government is a beacon of hope, that it does amazing work in periods of light, but especially in periods of darkness. This budget attempts to take all of that and codify and prioritize it in ways that thoughtfully move toward a better and more resilient, more connected future. I'm excited for what you will hear over the next weeks from each area of our organization, led by many different leaders, coming up to tell their story, their contributions to what is Ramsey County. You'll hear from leaders who are serious, focused, committed, more than ever, to this organization's vision, mission, and goals. They're ready to move forward on a more stable footing than the past years have been able to offer us. While today is only a high-level start and kickoff to that conversation, I hope you leave looking forward to hearing more in the days ahead and excited to see the conversations you have around this table transformed into tangible actions. This budget places Ramsey County on a sustainable financial footing after a number of years of challenge. I remember becoming county manager back in 2018, a little more than 5 years ago, in time for the presentation and final adoption of the second year of a 2-year budget from the 2018-2019 biennium. I then remember presenting to you the 2020-2021 budget a year later, and it took transformative steps in so many ways. Transforming systems together, healing streets, risk management, foundational excellence build-out, expanded programming for at-risk youth across corrections and social services, racial equity administrators, dedicated community engagement funding, 21st century parks, just to name a few of the items that were in the 2020-2021 budget. As I built this budget, I remembered those moments and then recognized that all of those items have now significantly moved since that time and become a part of the DNA of our organization and our work. And then COVID showed up. A year into that 2020-2021 budget implementation, I came back before you with a revised budget that reduced the 2021 budget by $20 million. It brought the levy down to zero during a time of great financial concern and need in our community. It was difficult, but it was the right thing to do. We only had 1 year to build into our DNA the items that I listed to you. And in that 1 year, we did so many things together. Then 2021 came. 2022 and 2023 brought a budget that led with emergency response, federal and state pandemic aid. How can we stand up new programs? How can we sustain? How can we expand service delivery during a time of challenge? You saw a 1.5% growth the first year in terms of the levy to keep the levy low again, and then only 4.5% for the second year, this current year, when inflation has run in areas of 6 and 7 and 8%. None of these years made up for the cuts or the inflation that we've all endured collectively, but we've been innovative. These teams have been efficient and steadfastly worked to ensure that we have done what is right for our community throughout that time. So I stand before you now excited and prepared as I present a proposed 2024-2025 budget that puts the county on a sustainable, thoughtful, and responsible path. This cycle should be the final time you have to discuss at the outset the impact of COVID-19 on our budget and fiscal standing as an organization, as this moves us back to an approach where Ramsey County will be back in a place to do its work in predictable and meaningful manners. Our employees have excelled during challenge. Think of what they are poised to do in a period beyond challenge on stable footing again. I hope you see innovation, creativity, and values-driven approaches throughout today and in the weeks ahead as you learn more about every aspect of this budget. I hope you see the values of this board and this community and the work you each do reflected in it. I believe it showcases the best work of counties, and that Ramsey County is poised to show the state and the country what local government can do when working in partnership with its community to build a more equitable and prosperous future in which every resident sees themselves being a part of it. I also hope you see a list of efforts that, given a stable 2-year run to implement, shows promises and commitments that we have proven we can deliver on and execute on and are prepared to live up to. We are not creating a new list in this budget of shiny ideas that are far off concepts. These are tangible steps forward that build on the importance of people, partnerships, and service delivery, using the lessons that we have learned through hard work over these past years together. I'll now dive into the slides with you to share a little bit more about this budget, and more importantly, let's talk about how we are poised to get to work. So I'll bring you to the slides that I think you have in front of you. They're also online. They've also been posted on ramseycounty.us as I took the stage here today. As we've already talked about, the COVID-19 pandemic has placed enormous pressure on our communities. There were sources of funding that then were a part of helping us see through those times. The peacetime emergency ended this spring. We view this budget as an inflection point. It's not an easy inflection point. Beyond the pandemic means different things to people who may have lost loved ones, whose lives may have been upended, whose trajectory of their own life may look very different than it did before. It's not to say these things didn't happen, that they aren't happening and they aren't a part of who we are. But it is to say we can build a budget that begins to think beyond. We've learned many lessons. It's important to restate some of them here today as a part of our core from which we move forward. The greater disparities that COVID unveiled remain a part of something that we have talked about and known from before the pandemic, but were laid bare during. Co-creation is how we transform systems. Accessible communications remain a critical component to moving forward with so much of our work. In-person service delivery matters. You cannot virtually service deliver your world to a more connected community. Some people in moments of crisis need a place to go and a person to trust. We want to create options and accessibility in many different ways. But we have learned from being the first county to reopen in the middle of the pandemic and stay open throughout, on good days and bad days, during storms and clear skies, people come in to our service centers because they want in-person service. Technology infrastructure is so important to the future we discuss, and there are better ways to think about space. Space and technology will be common themes you hear throughout the days ahead. And we're always looking at new ways to collaborate across our service teams, recognizing we need to break down traditional silos that we create and then burden others with. This budget remains guided by the county's vision, its mission, and its goals around well-being, prosperity, opportunity, and accountability. If you didn't know about our community, here's a little bit more about it. It's the most diverse community in Minnesota. More than 500,000 people call it home. And this budget reflects the idea that community engagement happens every day through our work, every communication and conversation that we are having, all of the town halls and different forums, the formal and informal advisory groups, all contribute to what you will see in the weeks to come. And so as we look ahead, what we need now is investments in people served by Ramsey County, but also the people who work for Ramsey County. In partnerships, because we realize we cannot do this work alone. And in recognizing that gaps remain in service delivery, and we must continue to close them. So as we look beyond the pandemic, here's the overall budget numbers for 24 and 25. The proposed budget is set at $813,395,000 as proposed in 2024, and then at $841 million in 2025. This is our operating budget. That represents a 3.5% increase approximately for both of those years. It requires a 6.75% proposed levy increase to fund a portion of that budget in 2024, with a ceiling of 4.75% in 2025, with the important note that this budget, because of the early stages of the conversation around cannabis implementation, budgets $0 in revenue at this time coming to local governments for the sales of cannabis in Minnesota. Local governments will receive revenue in sales tax from the state program of cannabis, and the proposal in this budget is to reduce the levy in 2025, dollar for dollar, with the revenue that comes in from cannabis, creating a new funding source for the county, to create a more diversified funding stream to allow the county to continue to think about other ways to fund its operations beyond the property tax levy. And so we're setting the 2025 number as a ceiling with the intent to have it come down as the Office of Cannabis Management stands up at the state and we learn more specifics about what revenue estimates may look like. We looked at our levy growth to put it in perspective over the last 10 years. What does it look like? And we see that we've averaged 3.3% a year average levy growth. That is below what the state has averaged. I know the state's average for the last 10 years was around 3.5%, at least during that time. This shows that Ramsey County has remained an organization that starts with the idea that we must be responsible with every dollar we ask for from the taxpayer. Moving to just the pandemic period of 2021 to 2025, where we've seen broader swings because of these tough times that we've been through, you can see the average levy growth during that time would be placed at 3.5%. I want to acknowledge the work of the legislature and thank them specifically for the contributions that were increased to county program aid during this last legislative session. That increase of $6 million represents a 1.76% decrease in the levy that I am able to propose to you today. That is money that we do not have to levy because of the legislative involvement and increased contribution. While we would always say we would like to see more as we move ahead, almost 2% remains a significant number for which we hold gratitude. Our regional rail levy numbers for 2024 and 2025 are proposed as set here, and our Housing and Redevelopment Authority as well. These remain at the statutory maximum as allowed by state law in where they are set. And to give you a sense of our authorized FTE count as a part of this budget, the 2024 budget, as a part of our adjustment coming out of COVID and calibrating the organization and looking everywhere, actually represents a 3.8% decrease in the authorized full-time equivalent employees working in Ramsey County. This reflects the cleanup related to the closure of the care center. It represents vacant positions that have been on the books a long time and unfunded in the organization, and bringing transparency to our complement overall and what it looks like. It also accounts for growth in areas like property management, information security, communications, navigator services. It's a net that you see at the end of this as we continue to modernize and show that we can change along with the changing times around us. And then in 2025, you can see the number remains basically unchanged. The state not only gave money through county program aid to counties in a sustainable way that allowed us to bring down the levy, the state also did many other things that are important to note that put money in the pockets of homeowners or renters, families, individuals here in our community. That money does not come through the county. It does not impact our bottom line costs and expenses, but it is important to note that the work of the state positioned our state, and through it, Ramsey County, in a better position than it would have otherwise been. The state's recent budget enhanced homeowner property tax rebates. It enhanced renter property tax rebates. It included the income tax rebates. It included the income tax credits for families, and the property tax homestead exclusion was increased as a part of the formula that runs. All of these are contributors to adding money into households across this state. They're an important part of the ecosystem in which we operate, and a part of our belief that stronger households will result in less need long-term for emergency county services. These are long plays and long games and investments in foundational pieces from this state, but they are nonetheless important and important to call out. As you look at where the money is distributed in this proposed budget, you can see that, where the money comes from in this proposed budget, you can see that almost half, 45.5%, comes from property taxes, with a quarter coming from intergovernmental revenue, state and federal funding sources, charges for services making up 18%, and some miscellaneous pieces, the remainder. How the money gets spent is shown here by service team, showing that health and wellness is and will remain the largest share of what the county's work does, comprising a little less than half of the county's overall budget, followed by safety and justice, economic growth and community investment, information and public records, and then the strategic team and general county purposes. We've talked a lot at the board about this, but it is important to continue to recognize that there are additional funding opportunities that will come before this board outside of the biennial budget process that are involved with the legislative actions taken last session. These are many of the key areas where significant legislative work got done. Some are more clear on the revenue side than others. Some you will hear about funding streams, projections, staffing-related requirements as we go through it. For example, in the areas of transportation and housing, it's a more clear picture in terms of what we expect and the estimates for those funding sources. On the Economic Growth Community Investment Day, you'll hear more. Whereas for cannabis, we currently project a 0 in this biennial budget for the reasons I already cited. I already mentioned people, partnerships, and service delivery. I'm going to briefly walk through some of what that can look like. Recognizing that investments in people require attracting and retaining staff, this budget continues to prioritize and invest in processes that do that so that Ramsey County is competitive in the job market. We are creating pathways through and into public service and increasing paid parental leave to align with the expanded benefit at the state without waiting for the state to tell Ramsey County to be required to do it. This budget supports the 80 remaining employees who are at one time a part of the Ramsey County Care Center and fully integrates them in the budgets of operating departments across the organization. This fulfills the promises we have made up until this point across our workforce, saying, if you want to stay with this organization and be offered an opportunity to continue your career in public service here, we will be here with you along that journey. This budget takes care of that and finalizes that part of the process. And there are many other high priority investments in all the areas listed here. You will hear a lot more about each of these areas as you go in the coming weeks ahead. Residents first, transforming systems together, trusted messengers and continual communication. These are all areas that we have talked about before. These are not new areas, but to the point that we need to continue to build on work where we have learned lessons and seen progress. This proposed budget continues to fund and move forward in those spaces. And in the areas of transit, housing, and workforce infrastructure, there are new opportunities in front of us. Significant new amounts of funding coming our way. Opportunities to take an economic inclusion plan and move it beyond the ability we've been able to so far. The opportunity to make progress on a 15,000 affordable housing unit backlog here in Ramsey County. These are opportunities in this budget that we look forward to talking more with you about. And continuing our work around procurement. This budget signifies the time when our disparity study will have been completed with the state of Minnesota per statutory requirements, which opens up new opportunities in the area of how we procure and how we solicit and how we award, which allows more people access into our procurement system and our public spending. Because we know the dollars you spend locally get regenerated through your economy in ways that build a stronger community. Partnerships are so important to the work of a county. We continue to work to modernize the financial assistance system, and we've talked about this here at the table many times, working with the state of Minnesota and others, thinking about our caseload structure. I'm pleased to report we're at one of our lowest numbers of case backlogs that we've seen over the last many months. That number was at a high of almost 8,000. It's down to about 1,000 as of a check yesterday. The progress and the investments you have made matter. This budget reinvests and sustains the additional positions that the county board authorized previously to see progress in that space. We're excited to continue that moving forward. And continuing to think about our resident relationship management system, building a system that allows us to see across the entire operation, access at a call center and at our service centers in person. Bail reform has been an important part of our work, and you'll hear more as we move through this fall about the importance of bail reform work. Commissioner Moran sits on the bail reform work group as a part of the county's representation. This work is being done closely with the county sheriff, the county attorney's office, and the bench. And it is so important that we continue to think about our most punitive systems and how they are barriers to long-term prosperity for residents. Finally, no presentation can be completed without a conversation around community resilience and climate. We stand under another heat advisory today, recognizing the impacts of climate change are already upon us and have been throughout this year. The world just saw the hottest July it has seen in human recorded history, following what I believe was the hottest June in human recorded history. Ramsey County knows that it cannot do this work alone, but it must do this work as an organization and in partnership with many others. And this budget continues to move forward in those areas. As we look at service delivery, we've talked a lot about the 911 initiatives and our work around appropriate responses to make sure every call receives the appropriate type of response, ensuring that we can address needs in the moment in ways that do not escalate and do not take away from resources needed elsewhere, but thoughtfully use moments of crisis as an opportunity to build the stronger community we seek. We will continue to invest in our buildings and spaces. We've had a lot of conversations about the closure of the East Building. This 2-year budget is when that formally will occur. That building has been a part of Ramsey County for probably my entire lifetime, and maybe longer than that. But it's a reminder that we are ever changing and thinking about our work as we continue to build out at Metro Square. We continue to build out at the new Wabasha building and make excellent spaces that are dignified and welcoming of every employee and resident who walks in their doors. And finally, no budget at this time can be forward-looking without continued investments in information technology. Two of the biggest areas of drivers of growth in budgets for departments and service teams in Ramsey County are in the area of property management and information services. Property management, because excellent space matters, and we must continue to upgrade the space that we have to be prepared to attract and retain the best and welcome everyone into our doors. Information services, because where we work looks different than it did before COVID-19. We will continue to be an organization where half our workforce is at work every day, all of our workforce is at work some of the time, but we are all working in many different places on many different days. And we need to enable that type of fluidity and flexibility to ensure we are at our best. The budget chair already walked through the important dates in the budget process, so I'll refer you to her comments for additional information. And most importantly and finally, thank you for the opportunity to lay out this broad brush of Ramsey County's budget. It's an honor to stand up here before all of you and serve in this role. And it's also an honor to get to do it after COVID-19 has officially ended. There's a renewed sense of optimism and hope as we move forward. And today you're going to hear two more conversations that set the stage for the coming weeks. But on behalf of the entire organization, we're excited for a fall of good budget conversations with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, County Manager O'Connor. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we're not going to get into detail in this budget, and I just so appreciate the overview. This is very exciting work, and I'm just proud of our county, the staff, our board, everyone for getting us in this direction. I couldn't be more proud and excited that we are, I think, leading the state and the nation in the work that we're doing. I just have a clarifying question on the slide 14, page 7 of mine, but it's slide 14, and I think it's just a semantics that I want to just clarify. It says additional funding opportunities that will improve programs and services. I think we have additional funding opportunities to improve the following programs and services. Are we getting funding from corrections, homelessness, housing? It looks like we might get funding from cannabis, but we may not get it from the other areas, or are we actually getting funding from some of these other areas? So if you could just clarify that slide, and so I'm thinking of it the right way.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, thank you for the question. It is an area where everything looks a little different. It's confusing. We should be talking about this a lot. These are areas where if you write them down at the top of your page for every day of budget hearings, you will hear more specifics about revenue coming from the state in these areas. It doesn't look the same in every area. What you heard today that I would use this moment to highlight is that cannabis revenue is being proposed looking forward in this budget as a general purpose revenue to Ramsey County to diversify its overall funding stream and create a funding stream different than just the property tax levy as a tool for the county as a whole. These other funding streams are programmatic funding streams. They allow you to expand the work happening in different areas of the org, and you will therefore hear from these areas about the plans they are putting in place to receive enhanced funding that will allow improvements to probation services, homelessness continuum, the housing affordability gap, et cetera, et cetera.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair. My brain went to, we get money maybe hopefully from cannabis, but we are getting money to address the others. And they're not going to make us money, but we're getting money to address them. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions about the slides? All right, thank you, County Manager
Thank you.
O'Connor. Next, we'll hear from Larry Timmerman about our community indicators and performance measures, which really is the basis of how and why we do this work. So thank you, Larry, as you're pulling up your slides. Welcome. It's good to see you again this morning.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and thank you to County Manager O'Connor also. I am here today and honored to be here today to present the state of our community indicators and performance measurement program in Ramsey County. First, I'd like to start with a few acknowledgements. We have a number of people across this organization who are very involved in developing our performance measurement and community indicators program. First of which is our now Chief of Staff, formerly our Director of Policy and Planning, Elizabeth Tolzman. She was instrumental in developing this process as it got to this point, really embedding community indicators into this process. I'd also like to thank our Policy and Planning team, many of them are here, and our Interim Policy and Planning Director, Lydia Germa, for guidance and assistance throughout this process. Our performance measurement action teams, and they're representing each of our 4 service teams. And they're also here today, Richard Stevens from Safety and Justice, Tracy West from Information and Public Records, Josh Olson from EGCI, and Sarah Mayat from Health and Wellness. So just an acknowledgement of them. And certainly not least, but last in this list, our budget director, Susan Earle, for her leadership in building a budget process that's centered in performance measurement, accountability, and meaningful community engagement. We're kindred spirits in this work, and she's been a pleasure to work with. Thank you. So our performance measurement program and community indicators really look at 2 different aspects of the work that we do. Performance measures is evaluation outcomes embedded in our 2-year cycle. So we're always working on improving our performance measurements as an organization, tying them to the accountability of our work that we do across the county. We measure outputs, outcomes, so that we're accountable and equitable in our services, or directly influence allowing us to target our resources. So that's why it's part of the budget process. And it shows us how much we do and whether or not people are better off. Community indicators are much more broadly indicators of community health and community well-being. So indicators cover an entire community. We use reliable third-party sources, and I want to acknowledge here we don't always have the most disaggregated or the best data. We're working on that, and we will continue to fight that battle wherever we can. We will take that to whatever source we can find to do this work better. And I'll start with an overview of how performance management and then community indicators influence our work. So this just gives you a sense of our budget process, but I want to give you a sense too that this is linear in nature, but it overlaps completely with our supplemental process. So we're always working on performance measurement. This year we really formalized embedding performance measures and community engagement into the budget instructions. So you're going to see that come out in the narratives and the presentations. All of that is a part of the process. And then we get to the supplemental budget process at the end, the green balloon here. We're already working on that. So we've launched into the effort to further develop our performance measurement program. That work is starting already, and we'll be talking about more and more as we go forward. So this 4th slide, think about this as the DNA of the organization from our last cycle. This is the 3-tiered approach. We have countywide measures, service team measures, and department measures. All of them are important. We're working on them concurrently. We're also building them into our strategic priorities. So more and more you'll see interconnectivity, overlapping across service teams. These are really the lifeblood of the organization. I also want to point out open performance here, the link, and you'll get this link is live, and everything is updated and available. So we did something new this last cycle. We asked departments to bring their performance measurements forward in board workshops and committees of the whole. This is a listing of those efforts as they came forward. They were done in many different ways, as you know. We had individual departments, we had collaborative groups, we had some groups that crossed over service teams with the committees of the whole. This is all really important to tell you the story. We are holding ourselves accountable, and we'll continue to do that going forward. So the guiding principles, switching to our community indicators. This slide represents our guiding principles as we build out community indicators. So we don't do these independent of the community. We go out, we seek input. They're connected to our county goals, our strategic priorities. They're intended for broader audiences. They should be easy to read and understand. They represent long-term changes, and they should be disaggregated wherever possible by race and ethnicity. And that's the part we're really focused on now, to make sure that these sources are all that. So the theory of change that we use to develop community indicators, and I just wanted to show this quickly so that as a reminder really to how we got to this point. This is not a process we are going to change or expect to change. So we'll be going back to community again. We'll continue to build out what are the most important indicators and develop the best sources of data that we can for those. And really getting to the point so that residents may have access to upward mobility. And that's all residents. So, what are our community indicators? We have 19 of them listed here, and the ones with asterisks are those that I'll get into a little more detail on this morning. Each of these were developed as part of our upward mobility process, a process you've all been updated on over time in workshops. And that included community engagement. Over 100 organizations were involved in that. So there was a significant amount of community engagement going into building these out. Now we're looking to maintain them and improve on them. So the first one, I should say these are the rest of them. First one I have for you today is the median household income by race and ethnicity. And this is shown at the 20th, 50th, and 80th percentile. And that's a little complicated. It requires 2 data sets to do, but to simplify it, essentially we're looking at what's the mid-level, the 50th percentile. And the 80th percentile gives us a better sense of the more affluent parts of the community. And then at the 20th, those less affluent. Last year, we presented that the white population in Ramsey County at the median level, 50th percentile, had a higher household income than the 80th percentile for African American and Black households in Ramsey County. That's still true, but that has narrowed greatly. So that's something to really, we're tracking this across the race and ethnicity groups, but that was a pretty significant change that we've noticed in our indicators. That's from 2018 to 21. The home ownership rate has not changed much since the last time. And I want to remind you too, our community indicators are now 2 years old. So our data sources span starting from 2018 to 2021. And that's just the nature of the data having a lag. So as we get more years, we'll have more of a longitudinal look at these. But if you look to the non-Hispanic white, representing just under 60% of the county, own nearly 85% of the houses. And so this isn't news, this isn't new. But if you look to other groups, none of them own as much, have as high a percentage of home ownership as the representation in the county.
Larry, just one moment, Commissioner.
Yeah.
For the percent of population, is that total population or population of adults? Because we know that there's a big generational difference in our population in terms of race and ethnicity.
Yes.
And I don't expect many 12-year-olds to own homes.
Correct. And Commissioner, I had to check this. It's overall population.
Could we get a new one with
Yes.
adult population?
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you,
is. This one is tethered by the Urban Institute to the population percentage.
Okay, thank you.
And the percentage of home ownership is a percentage of homes owned in the county by that race or ethnic group.
Great. Thank you.
So the next one is the preschool enrollment rates for 3 to 4-year-olds in Ramsey County. And this is one where we included all for this one because you can see that there's been an increase from 2018 to 21. This is the new data that we put together this year of 5 percentage points. We see that increase happening in other races and ethnicities in the Hispanic, but not in the Black non-Hispanic community. And this is also an opportunity to point out the other races and ethnicities is the area we're focused on to get improved data. So we should be able to get that. We expect it this year. That is something we really should be able to break out Asian in Ramsey County. Historically, the Urban Institute hasn't done that, but we're working with them to be able to do that for us.
Excellent. Commissioner Featherman has a question here.
Can you also explain what's meant by preschool enrollment? Does that include like highly rated childcare, licensed childcare programs, or is it just public school pre-K? Does it include Head Start?
Commissioner, Chair, Commissioner, I can get you a thorough description of what it means.
Thank you.
This is one that the Urban Institute puts together for us. I want to make sure that I answer that completely when I answer it.
Thank you, I appreciate
Excellent. Thank you.
And the next one is food insecurity in Ramsey County in 2021. And you can see in this one, often this is presented as overall. So you'll see the total. This is Ramsey County in Minnesota. The lower two bars, the total, is just over a 2 percentage point difference between the state and Ramsey County. When you look to children, though, it's about 5 percentage points. And so most of our food insecurity in Ramsey County is going to show up in children. I think that's really the highlight here, to start looking at these things more deeply than just giving one data point. And that's relative to the state, too. So as you think about how is Ramsey County different than the state of Minnesota, this is a place to look.
Yeah, County Manager O'Connor.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Larry, I just want to add one thing, too, because this goes back to the conversation we had earlier about opportunities where we're hoping state investments make significant changes. This data would not reflect that yet because of the lag. But, for example, the elimination of school lunch costing money, school lunch and breakfast to families across Minnesota, should have a disproportionate positive impact in Ramsey County. That's not money that came to the county's budget. Long-term, though, we hope that it helps build a stronger community overall, and we'll be excited to see where the data leads us in the years to come.
Yeah. And we also have measures underlying these in our performance measurement program, too. This is thinking about it broadly as a community indicator, and so we can share more of that as we come forward with departments. And then arrests by Ramsey County law enforcement agencies per 100,000 youth by race. So this one also a little bit complicated in that it uses, so we have BCA data that shows us the youth arrests, and then so from our community corrections department, and this is against just youth. So the error rates get a little high, but it's the best we have at this point. And you can see this is per 100,000 arrests. So don't think that in the case of Black African American, it's not 3,904 arrests, it's actually 309. So this is grounded in per 100,000 youths. So we don't have 100,000 Black or African American youths in Ramsey County. So it's really meant to level set the different race and ethnicity groups, so you get a clearer picture across the different groups what it looks like.
So that was confusing, Larry. Sorry.
Let me try it again.
Say that one more time, maybe in another way. So are you, and I think the questions, I saw a lot of confusion around the table. Are you saying that in 2022, 3,904 Black youth were arrested, or are you saying 390?
If you ground that in 100,000 youth, so if we were to have 100,000 Black or African American youth, based on the number that were arrested in Ramsey County, there would be 3,904 arrests. So this is all grounding it in 100,000 youths to be able to compare across race and ethnic groups when we don't have that many arrests. And I can give you an example. There were 80 white youth arrested. So those 80 white youth, we take that number and then we magnify it by 100,000 youth. What would happen if we had 100,000 white youth? Then there would be 336 arrests.
Why are we magnifying it, not just giving us actuals?
It's an effort to be able to compare the groups on the same, based on the same grounding. So
Got it.
to say that if we had all things being equal, which they never are, but all things being equal, this would be the number of arrests or based on race, ethnicity, if they had the same number of youth in the community.
Got it. Thank you. County Manager O'Connor.
Madam Chair, I'm just going to add a little bit more to it, to everything Larry said being correct, except you said 309 at the beginning,
Yeah.
which kind of actually threw a goof because you mixed up a 9 and a 0. But that's where Commissioner Reinhardt's face, I saw it. So that was just he flipped two numbers. But Two things. One, if you only show absolute numbers, it masks the disparity oftentimes because it shows that the numbers are closer together than they are on a proportional basis. That's why we normalize it by numbers. To me, I actually prefer to take the number and divide by 100,000 and get the percentage because my brain works better with the percent than the number. So for example, if you look at that orange bar, 3.9% would be the number, I think, if I did my fast math right there. That would be the rate of arrests for the population of black youth in Ramsey County, right? Relative to a 0.3% rate of arrest for white youth, okay? So there's multiple ways you can see it, but that's what we're trying to get at, is normalizing the data to show the stark disparity that ultimately exists.
Got it. Thank you.
If we shared, I'm sorry, if we did share it just by race, ethnicity, it wouldn't be really telling because of that.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you.
Well, and if
Commissioner
you
Fennell.
did percentages, when you're talking 3% or 0.3%, that doesn't produce the impact that this data presentation does. It really shows it more clearly, the differences.
Got it. Thank you.
And I should say too on this one, Madam Chair, Commissioners, we have 2 years of data here because there's a new way that this data is being drawn, and that does mark the beginning of our upward mobility community indicators. So each year we're going to have a new data set to layer a year on for this one. And we may decide to change it to percentage too, but either way, we'll continue to be able to build this out now with our new data set. And that's why we're also able to disaggregate this one by race, because we've taken this one on locally. So we should actually be able to disaggregate this one further.
Great. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. So through all of these,
One
yes,
moment,
go
Commissioner
ahead.
Fredham.
Before I have one more question about the home ownership data. How is it determined when the home is owned by people of more than one race? It's like a married couple who are not the same race.
that's based on the census household data. So it's census household data, how that's collected in the community survey. So it's head of household responding to the survey, and then acknowledging other people in the household, however that is collected. So we're using that American Community Survey and the methodology they use, and then the home ownership in Ramsey County.
So it wouldn't it just head of household. So if the head of household is one race and other people are not, it would show it as the head of household's race as owner?
That's my understanding for how the
Okay.
base level data is collected, but we'll confirm that too and get that back to you.
Oh, that'd be helpful.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. So we're still experiencing racial disparities that continue to exist. We're doing things about them in terms of our data and the way that we're sharing it. We're trying to be able to draw these things out in ways that are meaningful so we can address them. Also in our performance measurement program, we continue to build out measures that are anti-racist in nature. As you recall, last year we built performance measures that were results-based accountability, anti-racist with the Center for Economic Inclusion. These are all core to our values, as County Manager O'Connor mentioned in his presentation. So research, data analysis, and evaluation are still very, very valuable and key to this effort. And advancing performance measurement, building it into our culture is really helping us to better connect, collaborate, and align with community and regional partnerships. And that too is bringing in community voice in this process, which we are doing more and more. So finally, Madam Chair, Commissioners, as you review the budget documents, you're going to see in there in the narratives and in the presentations a commitment to community-centered budgeting, process improvement and collaboration, performance measures and how they're impacting budget decisions, racial equity considerations for the budget, and updates and impacts of recent initiatives. And for any of these materials, you can go to the Open Data Portal. Open Performance has the updated performance measures. The Open Data Portal and the Stories has the community indicators. And those links are embedded in this presentation. I appreciate you having me here today, and I'll do the best to answer any more questions that you have.
Thank you, Larry. Any other questions for Larry at this time? Commissioner Fredham, you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. Sorry.
No, they're good. Thank you.
Data's exciting, so thank you very much, Larry. We really appreciate you and the whole team, and Deputy Director Earl, thank you for your work and leadership in this area, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, Pat Chapman and Tracy West. In your new role,
I think I can. Yeah, I think I can get it from you. There you go.
Good morning, Chair Martinson, Commissioners, County Manager, esteemed colleagues in the room, residents watching. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about trends affecting values and property taxes for payable 2024. My name is Pat Chapman, and I'm the Ramsey County Assessor and the Director of the Department of County Assessor. Along with me today is Tracy West. She's the Ramsey County Auditor, Treasurer, and about 15 other things. So she's got a really big job here. Thank you very much. The presentation today will have a few key takeaways that are posted up there if you want to take a look. We're going to talk about assessments and the 24 paid data. So you'll be able to see some of the things that happen as a result of the budget. The key takeaways is an understanding of the 2023 values and an understanding of the impacts for payable 2024. As we see this slide every year, we're on an upward trajectory, which means Ramsey County has a stable home base and a commercial base. We have a really good group of real estate properties. We have a healthy, stable real estate market, and we're at an all-time high, just over $74 billion.
Madam Chair, do you
Yes,
want to
go
take
ahead,
questions
Commissioner.
now, or should I wait?
if it's clarifying
Yeah,
points, go ahead.
just curious, now's when I want to hear from our state demographer too. Like, how are they doing, how are we doing relative to the rest of the state in our trajectory? Are most houses going up, or is it like in other areas, is it not going up? Do you have a sense of that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, I can probably get you more data on that and make a clearer picture. I'd hate to, you know, we're focused more on the metro area and so where we live there, but I can get that information for you too.
And
Right.
in the metro area, are we pretty much going in the same direction as
Things are happening pretty similar around the metro area. We meet a lot, the region, we call them Region 9. We meet a lot with the other assessors in the counties around us, and Hennepin's having a lot of the same reactions. Dakota's having a lot of the same reactions. We're all growing. Some are growing a little bit more because of new construction opportunities. Ramsey County, we're built out a little bit, so ours are not as great in that area. I'm just going to write that down there.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
All right. Thanks. Madam Chair, Commissioners, here you can see the 2023 assessment, and we break it out by the city of St. Paul and then suburban Ramsey. You can see that the overall rate for the city of St. Paul, about 5.5%. Suburban Ramsey, 7% for a county-wide of about 6.25%, somewhere in that area. And you can see the biggest growth is in commercial and industrial. What that is going to do is it's going to provide a little bit of shift from the value base from residential to commercial industrial. So commercial industrial will be carrying more of the burden over this next year of taxes. Even though we are a very developed county, we do have some exciting developments in our county. I'd like to highlight those for you now that you guys are well aware of. The Heights had a recent groundbreaking, and I drove by it the other day to see where it's at. There's a couple pieces of yellow equipment out there, and it looks really great. It's about to get going. Very excited. It's a mixed-use development on the old Hillcrest Golf site. The next one I'd like to point out Highland Bridge, a long-term development that we're working with. And it looks great over there. I drove it the other day to just check it out. I love the view from Montreal as you're looking north, up the water feature down the center of that. If you guys get a chance, take a look. Two things I'd like to highlight in there. Marvella is a senior living facility that's Presbyterian homes. And then there is the Lumen, which is a senior affordable complex that's a joint project between Ramsey County and Common Bond. So that's exciting to see that growth in that area. And then some of the future things we've got going down in the county, downtown at River's Edge, the Hams Brewery, several affordable market rate apartment projects. We probably have about 10 to 15 at any one time going on in the county of market rate and affordable projects. The 1570 White Bear redevelopment of that little mall space there on White Bear Avenue. And then the University Avenue Development Corridor. There's some exciting things going on there, some redesign of projects. Looks like there's going to be a hotel and apartment building going up in some of that space in the not so distant future.
There's a missing item on there. Rice Creek Commons, 427 acres of property that's hopefully going to get developed real quick.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, yes, that's exciting, obviously. We're just getting into that, the early development of that. Yes, I'll probably be back here talking about the Rice Creek Commons next year and the exciting opportunity that has. And finally, after, I'm not going to editorialize that.
Thank you.
I'll be right here.
Okay, thank you.
So let's talk about petition trends, and this is the formal value appeal option. So we brought some of this data to you just to kind of show you where we're at. Tax petitions, we're about 1,386 petitions totally active over all years. We had 708 filed last year, and that's up from 622. The reason for this mostly is that we've had a growth in our county in value, and when that happens, people question it. So not an insurmountable number, about 13%, almost 14% increase. New filings cover about 10.5% of the value, and the total value petitioned for 23 is 7.45 billion, or about 25%. And most petitions are on properties that have grown a lot, so the commercial industrial property base. We're well positioned to handle these petitions in the office, and we are taking them as they come in.
Commissioner Zhang has a question.
Yeah.
Yes. Would you also just clarify what the tax court petitions are?
Oh, right. It's the formal appeal, Madam Chair, Commissioner. It's the formal appeal option. So in Minnesota, you have a number of options to appeal your value. That's why we set them 1 year and you pay tax on them the next year. So when we set that value, you can do the first value informal option. And when that process is closed, then you can file in the Minnesota Tax Court. It's a little confusing. It should be called Minnesota Value Court because you can only appeal your value, not your taxes in Minnesota. But it's literally called the Tax Court. And what you can do is you can file and have your case either heard by a judge or, there's a lot of negotiation that goes back and forth between us and the petitioners. They provide information, we provide information, and we come to an agreement.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. The 2023 market summary, just to sum up all the points that we've talked about. We're at an all-time high and we're heading towards 75 billion. Through some recent peak growth in the residential market, we're kind of stabilizing there, and it's good to see. Minnesota, traditionally, we all talk about this in the industry, of about a 4% market is where we're at. And then you can see by that slide that we had earlier, we're really reaching that area. We're kind of in the normal range for residential property. Development continues, driven by several large projects in St. Paul and soon to be Rice Creek comes. Economic outlook remains solid for real estate segments. Let's look at the industrial market. It remains strong. A few signs of weakening. The apartment market is stabilizing. We had years and years of excellent growth in this area. Now it's kind of flattening out. The retail market, while in flux, it had significant recovery from the pandemic, and some segments of retail are back to full occupancy, which is interesting to see. And then the full impacts for the office, we haven't been able to measure that too good yet. We're still watching the office market, with remote work and the new desire of delivery plans. It's kind of interesting to see where that market shakes out.
On the retail, I'm surprised to hear that retail has got full occupancy. Is that based on geography? Is it specific to parts of Ramsey County?
Right, some segments are better than others, but we are seeing people, for instance, like the mall at Rosedale Mall is doing extremely well. Some other malls not as well. So it's hit and miss, but some places are full and some places, so it's mixed. Okay. But we're seeing a recovery, which I kind of anticipated that it wouldn't be as robust as it is right now.
That's great news.
Is why I made that comment.
Great, thanks, Commissioner Zhang.
And just on that point, has it recovered to like pre-pandemic levels?
Not completely.
Okay.
We're headed towards there, though, Commissioner.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for your time, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Tracy West. Thank you.
Good morning, Tracy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat. Chair, Commissioners, County Manager O'Connor. First, I'm going to start talking off about some legislative changes that impact property taxes for 2023 and 2024 payables. There have been many legislative changes that will have a positive impact on Ramsey County residents, so I'll just highlight a few. So notice of proposed property taxes and required supplemental information. So most of the information that was added last year to the supplement has been removed, and the supplement is no longer parcel specific. The requirement for supplemental information now only includes the proposed levy, prior year levy, and percent change in levies for counties, cities, and all school districts. This also requires the jurisdiction website address to be included on the TNT notice. Interest rate for delinquent taxes and repurchase contracts. Beginning in '24, the interest rate for delinquent taxes, penalties, and costs will no longer have a 10% minimum, but the maximum remains at 14%. So a county board may set by resolution a rate lower than the interest rate determined by the Department of Revenue. Beginning in '24, a county board may also establish a lower interest rate for repurchase contracts. Otherwise, the interest rate is the rate determined by the Department of Revenue. We have Ramsey County targeted communities, so increases in the redemption period from 1 year to 3 years for tax forfeited property that is non-homesteaded and located within a targeted community. This is effective for delinquencies related to paid 23 property taxes and later. Property tax refund increases. So homestead and renters refund amounts are increased. Homestead household income limit is set at $135,410 for '24 with annual increases in the future. And renters household limit is set at $75,389. So this is effective for taxes payable in 2024 and thereafter. We also have some one-time increases in 2023 in renters and homestead property tax refunds. So refunds based on 22 rent paid and property taxes payable in 23 are increased over 20%. And then one-time increases in targeting property tax refunds. So for refunds based on property taxes payable in '23 only, the refund will be determined for 60% of the homestead tax increase above 6%. So normally this was set at 12%, and it's up to a maximum refund of $2,500. So this was at $1,000. All right, so fiscal disparity. So fiscal disparities is a tax-based sharing program created in 1971 in the 7-county metropolitan area to promote better regional planning and improve equity in the distribution of financial resources. So the fiscal disparities law requires each taxing jurisdiction to contribute 40% of the growth in its commercial and industrial property tax base since the 1971 assessment to an area-wide pool. So commercial industrial property includes all businesses, offices, stores, warehouses, factories, gas stations, parking ramps, and so forth. It also includes public utility property and vacant land that is zoned commercial or industrial. So the overall pool is up 6%. And in 2024, Ramsey County has contributed or will contribute $82.5 million, which is up from 23 by $1.6 million or 2%. So that total pool you see in 2024 of $563 million, so that will be allocated out to municipalities based on population multiplied by a ratio measuring relative fiscal capacity. All right, so now we get to the fun part.
Yes, Commissioner Tega, before you move on, Tracy.
Could you explain, because not everybody might be familiar with the fiscal disparities, so how is that going to be distributed? What has been our trend?
So in years past, Ramsey County has received about $90 million. But right now, we're still in the process of getting that allocation for 2024. So right now, we're projecting some increases, but still working through the numbers.
How about in the last 2 years? If last year was 90 million, what was the previous?
Yeah, it was similar. It grew. It's grown year over year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Tega.
All right, so because of where we are in the 2024 property taxes process, we must use some assumptions while calculating the 24 property tax estimates. So many jurisdictions are currently in the process of building their 24 budgets and determining levy needs. Because of this timing, we assumed most levies will come in equal to 2023. But what we do know in these calculations is we know the market value changes and we know the proposed county and city of St. Paul levies. So based on these assumptions, let's look at how estimated property taxes are changing year over year. So this chart is 2024 property taxes by St. Paul Planning District on a residential property. So the first section shows the change in median estimated home market values, and the second section shows year-over-year tax change in dollars and percentages. So for example, Sunray, Thomasdale, Hamlin Midway neighborhoods are seeing increases in market value, but the estimated taxes payable are projecting to be decreased. The West Side, West 7th neighborhoods are seeing significant increases to estimated market value, but the taxes payable is projecting to increase, but at a very small amount. So on the next slide, this chart is estimated 24 property tax by city and school district on median single-family homes. The first section, again, shows the change in median estimated home market values, and the second section shows year-over-year tax change in dollars and percentages. So within the city of St. Paul, we're seeing small increase in estimated market value, but also the small decrease in estimated property taxes. But as we move out to the suburbs, the story's a little bit different. So for example, Arden Hills in School District 621 estimated market value is increasing by 5.7%, but taxes payable is increasing by 2.4%, which equates to about a $126 increase in property taxes on a median valued home.
Yes, go ahead,
Just so
Commissioner
I'm
McGuire.
understanding
Yeah.
what we're seeing here, I'm just going to use a couple of examples here. Like Falcon Heights has a $60, it's a $60 change from 23, and then like Lauderdale has 249. So is it because there's what causes those structures? They're two small communities right next to each other.
Right.
So what causes that difference?
So the estimated market value and the property is a big driver, and also the shift from residential to commercial. So we're seeing like the change in market value is increasing at a higher rate than the property taxes, and that's really due to that shift from residential to commercial.
Yeah, go ahead. County
Neither one
Manager.
of them have very much commercial.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
what I'm seeing.
Matt?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
just curious.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, I would say, to me, there are two dynamics.
Yeah.
If you look left to right,
Okay.
to what Director West is saying, you see the change in the median value of a home or a property, and then you see the property taxes on them, and you notice that those rates are often lower. That's because some of the tax base shifted toward commercial industrial. That's happening countywide, not city by city. That's a countywide dynamic. But then within the cities, why are the two different? If you go back to the left side and you see Falcon Heights, the percent change was 3.3%, whereas in Lauderdale it's 9.6%. That is the difference. Is the market is right now in the way that for the last number of years it's been Thomasdale, the North End, the East Side, St. Paul, where we saw these massive increases. The good news is you're not seeing a lot of double-digit property valuation increases, which is unique in the residential market. We've had that for the last number of years.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for pointing that other column out to me. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. I think this next slide will help walk through some of those different factors. Okay, so what are those factors affecting payable 24? So this example, we have a Roseville property, taxes for 2024 on a median value single-family home. So let's take a look. So overall, property taxes are increasing by $90 year over year. So if you look to the far right, you can see the $90, which is a 2% change on this specific property. So market value in 2023 was $335,000, and it's now increased to $349,000. So we know that year over year it's changing by $90. So those increases due to the changes in levy are actually $142. But because of shifts from residential to commercial industrial, we're getting a reduction of $52. So that's netting to the $90. All right, so the next example. So we have factors affecting 2024 taxes on a St. Paul property on a median value single-family home. So property taxes overall are decreasing by $92 year over year. This is a 2.4% decrease. The property taxes increase due to changes in levy is $146. But again, because of these shifts, it is reducing the overall taxes by $238, getting us to that net decrease of $92. So in this example, we're looking at 24 property taxes on a St. Paul property, but it's on a median value apartment. So property taxes are decreasing by $251 year over year, which is a 1.2% decrease. So property taxes due to levy changes have actually increased by $823, but because of these shifts, we're seeing a reduction of $1,074, getting us to that net decrease of $251. I have a few more examples here. So in this example, we're looking at 2024 property taxes on a St. Paul property on a median value commercial property. So you can see here property taxes are increasing by $3,113 year over year, which is a 19.8% increase. And the property tax increase due to changes in levy are at $460. But because of those tax shifts, we're also increasing the property taxes by $2,653, getting us to that $3,113. So this was my final example, but in summary, estimated market values at an all-time high, but shifts from residential to commercial and industrial are contributing to property tax increases growing at a slower rate than the market value increases. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Tracy? Yes, Commissioner Zhang.
And just to clarify, you incorporated St. Paul's levy already too in the analysis?
Correct,
Right?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Nice job, Tracy.
Thank
you both to Tracy and Pat. Appreciate it.
Madam Chair, this concludes our staff presentations for today's launch to the proposed 2024-2025 budget cycle. We look forward to being back with you in the coming weeks. Budget books have been delivered to all of your offices. The material, again, has been posted online at ramseycounty.us/budget for everyone to be able to see. We will continue to take input into the budget through all the means that Commissioner Reinhardt referenced earlier, and we look forward to those conversations happening as we move ahead.
Excellent. Thank you, County Manager. Any closing comments, Commissioner Reinhardt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I think in looking at these, and I know, obviously this is going to be reported, and I hope that it is covered well. And just so that people know that they can go to the website, they can go to the portal, you can provide comments. But one of the things that I think is important are actually these last few slides, because there are going to be people that are going to assume that the increase in our property tax levy is the increase in their taxes.
Right.
And it is not.
That's right.
And in some cases, for the Ramsey County portion of it, and in some cases, it's something that will actually, in St. Paul, the median value apartment will go down in taxes, and so will the median value single-family home in St. Paul. So I think it's important that people understand how those numbers relate and the actual impact on their pocketbook, because let's face it, we're all taxpayers too. Yes. And that's what we want to look at. And so just to make sure that people understand what the proposed levy increase actually means to their pocketbooks.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I also, again, want to, I neglected to do it at the beginning, but I do want to thank Commissioner Moran as the vice chair of the Budget Committee, because, I've been through this a few times, but this is a new process for you, and trying to make sure that we understand, and you asked great questions as we went forward, because there were some things, once you've done it a few times, you kind of forget why, and so it was a learning process for me as well.
Excellent.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, both of you. All right, we're going to return to County Connections. County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're pleased to invite county residents, elected officials, and staff to Ramsey County Soil and Water Conservation Division's 50th anniversary celebration. This event is in partnership with the Vadnais Lake Area Water Management Organization, who is also celebrating a 40th anniversary. The celebration is being held on August 24th, 3 to 7 p.m. at Sucker Lake Pavilion Number 1 at the Vadnais Snail Lakes Regional Park. There'll be food tours of conservation projects, games, kids' activities, and oh, so much more. We hope you'll be able to be there and enjoy it, and thanks to the entire team for their work in pulling together a celebratory moment. Many of you have seen the great work the Soil and Water Conservation District has done over many years, and it's an important part of keeping our natural resources clean today and well into the future. I also wanted to provide an update, as we always talk about policy updates in the county, that we're excited to launch our new online administrative policy management tool for the county, Power DMS. It goes live today. There's an email going out to employees. It's where we track the compliance with training and policies. It's where you can find these things. As we work to build more tools that are better accessible for all employees, this is an important part of it. It has a lot of features that our previous iterations did not have. And before the current iteration that we have had, we weren't even online. And so we brought the administrative policy manual online. This brings it to the next step. Very excited for the launch of that tool. And finally, I think I had an opportunity at a previous County Connections to highlight with Healing Streets the partnership with Regions Hospital as we were executing our first contract in the area of hospital-based work to curb group and gun violence in our community. Trauma carries into the emergency room, and often is one of the most significant points of impact, is to be able to work and engage with families and impacted parties from the moment a crisis moves to the emergency room. And we worked tirelessly with Regions Hospital for about a year and a half to execute an agreement to be in the hospital with Regions staff during those times of crisis. I want to commend Regions for being a significant partner in this work, recognizing the importance of Healing Streets in that work. And on the 25th of July, the team was able to present to the full Region staff about that partnership and how it's building out, the role of the community mediators, how things have been going with their patients, both when they're at the hospital, but then beyond, because oftentimes if you're an ER nurse, all you see is that limited interaction and you don't always have an understanding of the broader arc to the work. And what's great is Healing Streets wrote back and said, hey, this went really well. And then we were on with Regions the next day and they said, hey, this went really well. It's always a good sign when all the parties follow up with that. But this is really important work that's happening here. It's happening behind the scenes. I don't think it gets a ton of daylighting for the importance of what hospital-based trauma work looks like, but I do believe it to be one of the most important ways we're trying to strengthen community ties and build a safer community for everyone. And I'll end by saying, Mark, can you just stand up, because I want to use you as my model. Mark Campbell from Healing Streets is here, but he's also wearing the new logoed shirts from Healing Streets. And I want to thank Communications.
Nice, very pretty.
This is actually a really big deal. This has been in the work for a while. I want to thank Rose Lindsay and her team in Communications for working directly with Director Givens and with Mark and the whole team on the design of a logo. One of the biggest things you hear is when you're responding in chaotic moments, an identifier matters to first responders because it can be hard to figure out who is who. And Ramsey County's logo is just not the right logo in those spaces for a lot of historical reasons that we just need to own and accept. There's all sorts of sweet new Healing Streets swag that the team now has. They're competing with emergency management for the right branding stuff. But it all looks great, and I just wanted to highlight that area of our work today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, County Manager O'Connor. We're going to move to outside committee reports. I just want to highlight that several folks have events that they have to attend at 11, and then we also have the courts lunch. So I'm going to ask you to do brief comments. We can do a longer session next week if you have more, if you don't mind. But we'll just ask for that. And I'm going to start with Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be quick. A few things. Had the first meeting of the advisory task force to Carla Bingham and which is for the Legislative Commission regarding the governance of the Met Council. She reported the Met Council was still in their sort of organizational stage. couple of issues came from the commissioners in the metro area regarding the Met Council. Quite frankly, they were all over the map, so that's going to take a little time. But it was interesting that everybody had sort of their list of things they wanted the Met Council to have influence on or control, and others they wanted to pull out. All the counties are in different places, so that's going to take a task to get on the same page. The other is had a meeting of great MSP that was strictly focused on aviation fuel. There's a big investment by Delta, and they have deadlines, and they're asking regions to come forward in terms of using, developing and producing fuel that's that's not carbon-based. And so we talked a lot about how to move forward as a region. Ecolab is a leader in this, so that's still more to come. It's really in the infancy stages. And then I hosted, or I should say we hosted 50 Ukrainian students. They spent a day in Ramsey County. And it was quite an event. They were quite grateful. I want to thank Joanna Ellis, who has retired, who used to do these kind of tours, and my sister Kenai also for doing quite a good job in structuring the whole day for them. I spent about an hour with them. I got to tell you that it was very interesting. We needed an interpreter, but they were they were asking a lot of good questions about democracy and how local government plays a role. So a couple other things, but those are the highlights.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Ortega. Commissioner Pradhan.
Was able to take a tour of the medical examiner's office along with some other staff. That was skipped on my initial onboarding because of COVID. So it was fun to finally get to catch up on that and thank them for their hospitality and welcoming us. Was a part of the our Burns Institute meeting with some of our senior leadership last Friday. Another great meeting and discussion was had. And I am going around to my municipalities to just give updates on some of the projects the counties are doing, and was able to present at the Venice Heights City Council meeting, the Gem Lake City Council meeting, and the White Bear Township Town Board meeting in the last week.
Thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you. Well, I will be brief as well. The Clean Water Council met yesterday, and we are working through many of the same things we worked through here as far as our budget. And in fact, they adopted the model that we use here as far as performance-based measures a number of years ago, and trying to make it easier for especially legislators to understand what this money is used for and how the impact. The outcomes are so important, and making it easier for them to understand, not just a spreadsheet of here's where we want the money to go. Right. I also just want to comment that the Metropolitan Council, as part of my master's thesis, I actually did a report on the Metropolitan Council. And what a lot of people don't realize is because you kind of morph into things. Mm-hmm. I mean, when it was first established, it was simply a planning agency. That was it. Mm-hmm. Major changes took place when they took over operations. It went from about 200 employees to over 3,000, I think, with everything. And the Regional Transportation Board was eliminated, so it didn't even have transportation to begin with. So a lot has changed, and so it kind of helps to have history when you're figuring out where do you want to go from here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. I'm going to circle back to Commissioner Moran, so I'm going to move to Commissioner Zhang.
Great, thank you. So I just want to share about a new partnership on the east side. mHealth Fairview, in partnership with the Sene Foundation, Oxford University, and the East Side Health and Wellbeing Collaborative, opened up the Health Commons East, and that is at the Conway Community Center. And that's the belief in that healthcare should be accessible in the community and not just at the doctor's office. This is a drop-in center where folks can get support, about medication, get checkups for free, as well as some massage too. That's underway, yes. And so this is a drop-in center. It's going to be free of charge. They'll have staff and volunteers who reflect and look like the community there to answer any of those questions. So I joined in on that grand opening last week, and it is open now at the Conway Community Center.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things, and I will save most of mine then till next week. But I was in Washington, D.C. at the White House last week to celebrate the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the most significant legislation in U.S. history to address climate crisis and to strengthen America's energy security. And it will lower energy costs for homes and businesses and create manufacturing jobs and deliver clean, secure, and healthy future for our children and grandchildren. And it was an amazing event to celebrate that investment that we're making in our country. Also, I will talk, I did a strategic planning session for AMC on Thursday and Friday, and I will talk about that next week. And we also had an AMC board meeting, which I will also give you details on that. I want to say that tomorrow, Roseville Business Council is doing a tourism update from Julie Warren of Visit Roseville. And also, next Monday is Rotary Day at the fair, and so this Thursday is the State Fair. I'm thinking you might be mentioning that, Madam Chair, but this Thursday starts the Minnesota State Fair, which we all love, and so I'll be doing that as much as I can. But then, Madam Chair, in a more somber note, I want to take a moment to share condolences with the family of Jory Jones, who passed away Sunday in a car crash. I think many of us heard about the Gustavus team, hockey team members. They were riding, she was riding with her hockey teammates and was in a car crash. She's a resident of Little Canada, remembered for her positive attitude during her time as a student and member of Roseville Area High School's hockey team as well. So just our communities are mourning this loss, and we want to send her family and friends our sympathies.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn back to Commissioner Moran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair and my colleagues here around the table, I've been sitting here with really a heavy heart that I'm going to share with you all. And I have some really good highlights that I want to present, and I'm going to forgo them besides one, because I don't want to carry this check around with me any longer. and so I want to highlight the work of the Sundance Family Foundation. They, after 20 years, have been doing awesome work in the community for youth, supporting youth, dedicating to empowering families and empowering the lives of children in our community through a range of initiatives, grants, and partnerships. And one of those partnerships that they have had is with Workforce, a great private-public relationship that has really yielded us opportunities to utilize the dollars they have given to us to do the work and support that we do with and for youth. So I wanted to bring this here today for all to see.
Wow.
Wow. Sundance Foundation, on behalf of the great partnership and leadership and the work that we have been doing here, and definitely under the leadership of Director Lean Becker.
Congrats.
So,
Thank you.
I
Thank
wanted
you
to
for
share
that.
Thank you.
So, if you don't give me a moment here, I just want to share a little bit about my story. And my story is one of a mother of 7 children, who in 2000 decided to leave Chicago to come here to raise my sons, my children, and create opportunities. And through that process, I was homeless. If I get emotional, excuse me. I was homeless. And it took 4 months before I was able to find housing. And when I found housing, I found it in St. Paul. And immediately, I knew the importance of connecting with my community and building relationships and allowing people to be able to see my 4 black sons, because I know we have a history, not only in this state, but in this country, of seeing our young black boys as someone who, as they gather, who may be selling drugs or part of a gang or up to something. So it's really, really important, not to negate my daughters, that I connect to my community and allow them to, the community to know who they were. So that if they were to see something that they were doing, that they would feel okay knocking on my door and saying to me, Raina, I saw Javon doing whatever. And we can have a conversation about that, right? That was important to me. And then I immediately began to connect to community organizations just to have a better insight about how I can be the best person and best neighbor that I could be in the community that I was a part of. And through that, I found the Rondo community, a community that had been disproportionately impacted by systems, practices, programs, and government. But that's just not really a Rondo and a black issue here in Rondo. It is across the country, but the inequities that we have saw. Government, presidents, governors, city council members, right, county commissioners, enforce. And it was the law of the land. That is the history of slavery in this country. And I found out yesterday that, well, we know that the city of St. Paul has been working on a commission around reparations that really entails people with lived experience, sharing those lived experience, and bringing forth the experiences of our ancestors. That is not just about yesterday, but it's about things that happen today. I was really fortunate at the state to, when we declared racism a public health crisis, to lead the Select Committee on Racial Justice, to uplift and educate people on the history of racism in America and the impact that it has had in the disparities that we see today and the continued inequities, the continued dismissal of our history, our journey, how a community of people that is looked upon as if they are less than, and not that a system that has disproportionately not supported the black community, that intentionally from slavery removed children from their homes. We have a system that continues to do that in high numbers. And so I want to share with you, I really am livid. I'm really, really livid. And not only am I livid, but the black community is livid. I can't tell you how many phone calls or how many texts that I received last night as I heard about St. Paul City Council decision on who would be the face of reparations in St. Paul, the home of George Floyd, the home of Philando Castile, the floor of Dante Wright, and so many other injustices, that they did not appoint a black person of Chantel slavery to lead this issue. I lived experience. Our ancestral lived experience. No one can tell our story the way we know and can tell our own story. And I was so proud that at the state level, in the work that we're doing here in Ramsey County, as I look at our value statement around people, integrity, community, equity, and leadership. And I'm used to fighting the fight with people who don't align with my values. I was proud to lead our BIPOC caucus around each one of us, seeing out the inequities that have impacted our community and stand together, but also support each other separately in our own select issues that are impacting our separate communities, from the indigenous community, from the Asian community, from the Latina community, from the black community. We're not the same. I can never, ever, and will never, ever be a spokesperson for the Holocaust. I would never, ever be a spokesperson for the Native American community. I could never, ever, and we as a Black community, never step out of our fight for justice and equity and fairness for our own community. But the City of St. Paul City Council has decided to not do that. And I'm used to fighting a fight with people who don't align with my values. But for a city who I was sure that was aligned with the values of justice and equity and the value of lived experience, this is painful. This is painful to see our city council do what they done. And so I'm going to read, there will be a press conference today at 11 o'clock here in City Hall. I'm going to read the press conference. Community members and leadership from the American descendant of U.S. chattel slavery who reside in the city of St. Paul once again feel looked over and smacked in the face. So please join community members and leaders for a press conference today, August the 22nd, at St. Paul City Hall, 15 West Kellogg Boulevard in St. Paul. St. Paul City Resolution 2177 commits to building generational wealth for the American descendants of chattel slavery who reside in Minnesota. And why do we use the word chattel slavery? Because chattel means personal property owned by the enslaver. Like we were livestock, we were bought and sold at will. The City Council put aside money in the 2023 budget to hire a senior policy analyst to manage the commission. The senior policy analyst hired is not an American descendant of chattel slavery, and the thought that this position been filled by someone other than an American descendant of chattel slavery has the community livid. For 404 years in this country, American descendants of chattel slavery have been overlooked, ignored, and abused physically and emotionally. And the city of St. Paul is currently continuing the same white supremacist practices they claim that they are attempting to repair. African Americans have suffered from generational harm, and the descendant of slavery should be the face of reparation locally and nationally. We are the storytellers of our lives, and it is imperative that we are the ones that create our narratives and the results. That is a quote from me in this press conference. So the community is, we're not asking, and I'm a gentle soul, but we are demanding that this wrong be right, that the commission makes recommendations because there was a process in place. There was an interview process in place. People interviewed for this, a chattel slavery descendants. I am the great-great-grandchild of a slave. This is personal. And they foregone that process that they had in place, and instead, a member of that commission decided to appoint a person to lead that initiative. So the commission makes recommendation that allows for a process that welcomes and accepts American descendant of chattel slavery principles and cultural styles to be recognized as necessary skills to produce outcomes that positively impact the American descendant of chattel slavery community. The staff members' understanding, perspective, talents, and culture will all play a vital role in how they will look at the current commission's recommendation. We demand that all parties involved in the hiring and approving of the senior policy analysis position take another look at the applicants and prioritize American descendants of slavery for interviews. If that pool of applicants does not fit the criteria set in St. Paul commitment through Resolution 2177, then the senior policy analysis position should be reposted and additional applicants are considered. That there is a transparent process for this community to observe, and that the process involves African descendant of Chantel slavery community in every decision the city makes regarding reparations for African descendants of Chantel slavery. Community also demand that the reparation position be separated from the district council coordinator position in order to allow focus and diligence to the work of gaining economic justice for African descendants of Chantel slavery. Second quote is, "I have never seen this done to any other culture. Never." This is a clear slap in our face, and it is a mockery of what we have gone through. It is a mockery that this has happened. And there is absolutely, for the St. Paul City Council, St. Paul City Council, that we look to others, people of color, to be our allies, to be a supporter in this fight for justice for all of us. They did not do this. And so we have a system that continues to be a part of picking up the practices of white supremacy and using it. And it will not be tolerated. We will not accept this. And we will not have no peace until this wrong is made correct. And this is what we demand of St. Paul City Council, every single member, that our lives matter, our history matter, our culture matter, and to continue to be re-traumatized, that we can never rest on our laurels. Because each time we rest, this is what happens to us. To us. No one leaves this for us. This is ours to be had in partnership with, but you cannot leave for us. And so, I know that I cannot, I want to, believe that systems have to be responsible for systems. This is a system. And we as a Ramsey County, who have put forward our core values, will respect one another by cultivating strong relationship, teamwork, recognition for growth, where integrity we continually build trust by being honest, transparent, and ethical. That community, we value community experience and expertise in decision making. That by equity, we transform structural policies and practices and reduce disparities and improve outcomes for all. And with leadership, we lead with humility by sharing knowledge and power. I came into government, a government that sometimes I don't trust myself, because I know the history of America, where laws were created that were not fair, that were not just, and that did not represent us. And my job is always to be a voice to make sure that we're working towards more fairness and more justice in government, within a system. And so I hope I can have you guys support this, join me. I can't believe my liberal friends, they're supposed to be friends, can see no value in this issue of reparations. And so we're calling on folks to show up for the press conference at 11 o'clock and stand and take a stand.
Thank you, Commissioner Moran. I'm going to leave her words stand. We're going to adjourn our meeting today. Our next official business is at 1:30. We will have a closed meeting on the Rice Street Commons, Outlot A of the Twin Cities Army Ammunition Plant in room 220, and that is closed to the public. With that,